Thank you. Well, at least we're kind of really excited about big data. We're a company full of nerds. We're 430,000 nerds employed by IBM. But I mean, so I'm here. Hopefully I can make some sense out of this terminology, big data, and what that means to a CMO. I will try and make it a little bit more crisp and clear, and perhaps a little bit more simple, and also highlight a lot of the opportunities that we do see. But I will also tie it back to, but what can we do with this guy, the CIO? How can we make his knowledge, his or her knowledge, something, how can we leverage this knowledge in becoming even better in our roles? So everybody, I mean, you've read it, you've heard it, the Gartner prediction saying that in 3 to 5 years, our IT spend budgets as CMOs, marketeers, will be larger than the IT manager's budget. That sounds really cool, doesn't it? Kind of like a power kick, like, yes, finally. But then you heard terminology like you've heard here, like big data, Internet of Things, multiplication of devices, bring your own device, Twitter, social media, all of these kind of things, blogs, or this customer complaints in public, firewalls. And all of a sudden I get an eerie feeling in the pit of my stomach. All this power that I felt by having a larger IT spend budget all of a sudden kind of feels like a burden. I'm actually, on my CV, I actually have the title CIO. So I used to be a CIO for a medium-sized company in Sweden before I joined IBM and took the CMO role. So I'm a little bit more confident, perhaps, on this subject than most CMOs. But to be honest, with the speed of the technology and the way it's developing, the confidence level has only taught me that I need to leverage the knowledge of the CIO more. I will make it my personal business to become the best friend of the CIO, because I know that he or she will be able to make me even better being a marketing director at IBM. So who am I then? I'm an optimist by heart. I'm optimist when it comes to time, and you're probably going to have to nudge me later on when I'm talking too much. And I see this area of technology as something that we really could leverage and you know, turn into something really cool. And we heard earlier about what's going on in the world, and I think we should start there to make sense of where we're heading a little bit. So we today live in a truly historical time. In 100 years from now, people will look back at this period in history and say, wow, really, seriously, over only a couple of years, we changed everything. We changed the way that we buy things. We changed the way that we do business as a result. We changed the way that we communicate. And we changed the way that we gather and use information. And these 4 things behind my back here is the cause of all of these changes. And I will go through them quickly, very quickly, just to give a kind of like an idea why this is so significant. So the first one, mobile. Today, 87% of the world's population has a mobile service. 87% of the entire world's population, that is including Africa and the development countries, are connected to a network. That's kinda big. We expect to be able to be connected pretty much everywhere. And this, you know, the trend of the bring your own device, the multiplication of different devices that you can do so with, you know, everything from smartphone and tablets. The other big trend that's going on is the cloud. So since we're gonna be mobile, we want to access all the same data that we have at the office. We want to get it on our couch, on the bus, you know, when we're waiting for the bus, or when we are on a safari. So we need somewhere to store it when we can actually also get to it, and that is the cloud. Now, so it's a number of different versions of cloud. There's probably more versions of cloud than there's people in Denmark. But The most simple form of cloud is, of course, the internet. That's a huge, giant cloud, Facebook and so forth. And then there's the very private cloud that's accessible only to the people whom work at that company with a login, etc. The third big shift that's going on is social. Social media, social business, social networks. And social is not just changing the way that we are communicating with one another. Social is changing the behavior. It's the core of why we're changing the way we buy things. It's about being able to influence other people in your network, but it's also about that we open up because we want to be influenced. We go back to basics a little bit. We are herd animals. We are following the leaders of the people that people that we admire. We want to be connected to their networks, and we listen to what they say more than we listen to marketing campaigns. Big shift. The fourth big shift is the shift of big data. You heard a lot about it here. Big data, or what you can do with it, rather, if you use analytics, so you can capture the information in big data. That's a huge shift. So what is big data? Big data is a natural resource. It's out there, available to anybody to capture and use. It's unowned, it's unstructured, and is uncertain. But anybody who wants to use it can use it. It's like, imagine a giant field of oil for anybody to just go and pump up and do whatever, car tires or whatever floats your boat with. That's the same with big data, and people are using it today. So, unstructured, we heard it mentioned before. What is unstructured? Well, it's things like pictures, GPS signals, it could be tweets, of course, it could be really structured PowerPoint presentations and all of those kind of things, videos and those kind of things. So what do I mean with unstructured or uncertain then? I'm going to give you an example of a really smart city in the States called New York. In New York, they monitor all of their city all their city resources, such as fire trucks, police cars, ambulances, garbage trucks, and all of those kind of things. At any given moment, they know exactly where their city resources are located. Well, one day, the guy that was monitoring the city resources, he figured there must be something really big going on in the bottom of Hudson River, because all the city's ambulances were piled up there. You can't really trust all the data out there. With the knowledge of that that's a fact, you also have to view the big data. So, big data. What do we mean with big data? Today, we produce 2.7, listen, quadrillion bytes every day. That's 2.5 followed by 18 zeros. So you can't even grasp what that is. So I'll put it in different words. Today, we produce more written information in 2 days than we have done since the birth of civilization, clay tablets and those kind of things, until the year 2003. In 2 days, we produce more data. Or, in other words, all the data in the world that we have today, all data, was produced in the last 2 years. Yeah? So, where does all this big data come from? A couple of examples. We produce 340 million tweets every day. Or, on Instagram, we upload 4 billion photos daily. 4 billion photos daily. On Dropbox, you'll find PowerPoint presentations such as mine. You'll find 1 billion new ones daily. But the cool thing isn't only, all the stuff that ends up there in this big cloud of the internet. The really cool things is what you can do with all of this data that you gather. I'll give you an example. Does anybody know here what Netflix is? Yes, yes, yes. So they're an online streaming service where you can get movies and TV and everything like that, yeah? So they actually know everything about how you Danes watch TV or streaming film or whatever you want to call it when it's really not TV. They know everything about what you do, and they know everything about what their 29 million subscribers do. They know exactly when you pause something, they know when you fast forward, and you know when you turn stuff off. Now, that is their big data that they are collecting, and who knew that they could actually do business out of that big data by selling that knowledge to, for example, BBC, so that BBC will produce better programs, more suitable for exactly the behavior of the public. That's what you can do with big data. Now, that's really, really cool. And you know, I kind of go on a little bit about what I believe I could do if I had access to all of this big data. Because today, as I said, I started with saying it's not only changing the way that we act as private individuals, it's actually changing the way that we buy things, especially if it's a little bit more expensive of a toy, let's say, that we're going to buy. We go out there, we Google the product that we might be interested in, we ask our network, we check blogs, we run Price Runner, we get a pretty good view of what it is we want to buy, and once we made up our mind, we will go to the store that has the best price. The only one at that point that can screw up my purchase of this product is actually the salesperson that I meet. The only one that can make me not buy is the salesperson I meet at the store. Imagine if I was a CMO and knew exactly, I could follow the search words and I could follow the tracks of this new potential customer. Imagine if I, after the customer invested a couple of hours in all of this, could send a SMS or a direct message on Twitter or whatever it might be saying, if you come to my store, you'll get a 20% rebate. Guess where this person would actually go and buy stuff? With me. And guess what? That person would probably not even see it as advertising. So I just invested in customer service. And when that customer is so happy with that purchase, will probably tell everybody in their network. So that's the beginning. Oh, hey, wait a minute. Weren't we going to talk about the CIO here? So, we can all see all of the opportunities, right? It's pretty obvious. This is really a game changer for anybody who's a marketeer. But what does the CIO think about the changing world? So I'm going to do a little improv here. The CMO will probably say, mobile apps, great, but what about security? Or, so who is going to handle all of this service for all of your devices? Or cloud, sure, but are you suggesting we open up the firewall to everybody? Or you want a tool that tells you what all of the Twitter users are saying about your brand? Sure, do you have 20 people that go along with that request? Or you want to harvest big data? Sure, I have to double our disk speed in-house every 18 months because of the data we're just producing in-house. And the last one, for 3 years in a row, I have lowered my IT spend budget. And here you come and tell me about all these cool things you can do. Take your investment elsewhere. So this is exactly the point. This is where our increased budgets and the knowledge from the CIO can really make magic. So IBM, a bunch of nerds. We have 5 Nobel Prize winners on our payroll. You can imagine the interest that this is triggering in all of my colleagues across the world when they see the notion of the world shifting and everything we've seen about how that is changing us. So we can't help ourselves. We go out and interview, of course, all C-levels across the world. We do it on a regular basis every year. We do CEO studies, CMO studies, CIO studies, et cetera, et cetera. And we learned a couple of things when we spoke to the CIO the last time, and I won't go through any details of the studies. There's a lot of good things you can learn, and they're on the memory sticks in your goodie bag, so you can digest all of this information at a later stage. But this is what we learned that the outperforming CIOs do in comparison to their peers that are lagging behind. So the first thing that the CIOs are doing is they're managing openness. They actively enable collaboration across the C-levels. They are not siloed, thinking about how they're going to make their next IT investment. They're inviting to discussions across the C-levels. The other thing that they're doing is engaging customers by investing in tools that enable individualization, it's a big word, individualization and responsiveness. And they use structured and unstructured data to become really personal with their clients. So they use the data by analysis to be really personal. The third thing they do is they're partnering for innovation. They're seeking a little bit odd kind of partnerships. And I told you about the Netflix people earlier, where they are using kind of the slack, the garbage. It's not their core business, all of this data that they're gathering, but they're using it to boost their business in another way. So they're making dollars out of their garbage, so to speak. So the outperforming CIOs are exploring non-traditional partnership through individuals and organizations and institutions, etc. So how does this knowledge compare to what the outperforming CMOs are doing in comparison to the CMOs that are lagging behind? Oops. Yes, I did right. There. The CMOs is, they are capturing and measuring data. So the outperforming CMOs are, of course, again, harvesting the information they know about their customer, but not just outside of the firewall, but also inside of the firewall. By doing that, they can predict and help their customer through customer service to make the next good decision about a purchase, rather than trying to, the spread and pray marketing funnel type of advertising. The outperforming CMO is delivering value to empowered customers. Today, when the customer comes to the store, or whatever buying front they might approach, they know what they want to buy. They already know more about the products than your best salespeople, because they just spent hours investigating exactly what product to buy. The third thing that the outperforming CMO is doing in comparison to their peers that are lagging behind are fostering lasting connections. The outperforming CMO understands that even though keeping contact with the customer will never generate another buy or more revenue or increased revenue, whatever it might be, they understand that the value of keeping that relationship going with the happy customer might generate an advocate in the future. Somebody that their network are actually admiring and looking up to, which again might be much more valuable than any campaign can ever generate. So I'm going to leave you with 3 tips and advice on what to do tomorrow when you get back to the office. First thing is partner with your CIO. And in that partnership, start using analytics. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. I can give you a very, very short example of uncomplicated analytics. There's what's it called that? A store that are selling like hardware tools and products in Sweden is a big chain. Every time you go to the cash register, they ask you, so which zip code do you live in? It's a very non-private question to ask where you live. So people volunteer that information without a problem. And afterwards, they use Excel. They will list all zip codes and match that with their receipts, what they bought. And by doing that, they will know which store to advertise which products, or what stock to keep, or whatever it is. It's free of charge analytics. It's the simplest form, but it's really, really cool. And also, start doing this now, because the competition out there are using analytics. And I'm not talking about the storefront next door or the most known competition out there. I'm talking about the developing countries. All of those that could bypass the use of big internal network. They went straight for mobile devices, they're straight to analytics, and they're our local competition today because of the globalizing world. In the Nordics, we really don't have much else than exports that's going to pay our pensions in the future. So if we are not being successful in competing with this globalizing world, then we're probably going to have to start trying to grow oranges or something like that. Tip number 2, use analytics to become personal with your clients. Well, I already said it, right? Today, the customers expect you to know them. They expect to know what you want and when you want it. Otherwise, they get a little bit irritated. And if you do not have analytical skills in your department, ask for help. Maybe the CIO got it, but if he don't, then ask for help. Hire new skills. The third tip, team across the C-level to work on your corporate character of the company. Because today, how you are is who you are. In the transparent world, we have to let go of the fantasy that we can control our brands, because we can't. Today, it's the customer that control our brands. So the really, really important thing that all of you should be doing, you probably are, but I'm going to say it anyways, is work on your corporate character, because a healthy company is a healthy brand. There's no way around it. You can't hide it anymore. There's no faking. How you are is who you are. And if you're a nerd like me and want to keep talking to me, these are my digital addresses where you can find me. If you can't find me around the round table over there.
All right, Charlotta, thank you.